Mr Chair, I did consult with the whips and suggest that we might have moved an extension of 10 or 15 minutes for that member because it was so good. Here's the story here is the history, sir, of this piece of legislation. This piece of legislation is no more than a political pamphlet. It came to the Law and Order Committee, sir, and we asked every submitter the following questions. Apart from that genius over there, whose fingerprints in history, sir, along with the incompetent Sandra Gowdy, the incompetent Judith Collins, are all over this parliamentary stuff-up. Thanks to that member who sought to restrict or expunge voting rights from every prisoner, the bill that comes back into the House, thanks to him, the National Party member Sandra Gowdy, that other belated genius David Garrett, or whatever his latest alias is, sir, he no longer is with us, and Sandra Gowdy, the chair, this bill comes into the House doing exactly the opposite of what that genius over there wanted to do. It allows the worst criminals who are currently barred from voting, sir, to vote. So I say to that member, congratulations. He has made history, sir, as probably the most incompetent member of this chamber. Here's what we asked the submitters, sir. We said, will this political pamphlet deter offending? We asked academics. We asked experts. We asked ordinary people. Even that hypocrite Garth McVicker from Sensible Sentencing, the man who gave a reference to David Garrett to get him permanent name suppression and get him off a charge, didn't even bother putting a submission in support of this legislation. That's how stupid this piece of legislation is. Even that hypocrite didn't. We asked every person who came before the committee, will it deter offending? Will it change prisoner behaviour? Will it stop recidivism? And will it aid in the healing of victims? And everybody, every submitter, sir, in fact, I think, sir, you may have an idea of this given you sat on the committee, every submitter, apart from, I think, that member over there and that rocket scientist of Blogsphere, David Farrer, even admitted that we were right, that it didn't do any of those things, that there was no international evidence that it would assist victims or anything else, but we should give it a go anyway. And then it gets better. It even gets better. Because then, sir, and we walked out of the committee, Labor members, I want this on the record, walked out of the committee on the first day. And the reason we did was this, because Sandra Gowdy stopped the justice officials, and justice officials for Mr Henry, who should be bouncing in a public bar in Porirua, justice officials, sir, are the ones that run elections. A number of members asked corrections officials, do you know anything about electoral law, and do you have any expertise in electoral matters? Answer, no. Have you ever been asked to advise on electoral matters? Answer, no. What role have you ever had as a corrections department in electoral matters? Answer, we handed the ballot box around the clink to allow those who were eligible to vote the ability to put it in the ballot in the ballot box. So we questioned the expertise they had, and we asked the chair, and we demanded that the justice officials who run elections, they don't run prisons, they run elections, corrections run prisons, they don't run elections, to be advisors, lead advisors or co-advisors. And the chair refused, and Mr Young, wherever he is, and David Garrett and the other National Party geniuses on that committee voted down the fact that justice should even be, Mr Calder was one, advisors to the committee. The expert advisors on this matter, sir, were barred from being advisors on the committee. It would be a bit like asking the Ministry of Health to perhaps be the sole and lead advisor on a tax bill. I think there would be a problem with that in terms of expertise. I think there would be a problem. So one of the reasons we have this stuff up tonight is because that the corrections advisors don't blame PCO, because that is gutless. That is absolutely gutless to blame PCO, because PCO take the instructions of committee members and ultimately take the instruction from the majority of the committee, which is headed up by that rocket scientist Sandra Gowdy. So PCO didn't get it wrong, corrections got it wrong, but I do not blame corrections. I do not blame corrections. They advised the committee that what Mr Quinn was promoting was contained within the bill. But the problem with blaming corrections is they admitted they did not have the expertise to deal with this bill. Had we had justice, this thing would not have happened. And then we come, folks, to the best bit of all. At the conclusion of the deliberation on this bill, it was moved by one of our side that maybe in order to avoid this sort of parliamentary embarrassment in the future, that we do a unique thing. We require that a select committee appoint the appropriate expert advisers on a particular bill. And guess what? Mr Young, Mr Calder, Ms Gowdy, and I think somebody else is on there, all the National Party members voted against appointing the most expert department on a bill. Well, how stupid is that? So I say to Mr Quinn, congratulations. He has a new career, yes. It may be on sort of Double Jeopardy or another game show somewhere, or another comedy show. He may well feature on 7 Days this week as the genius that he is, because he came out and he didn't even know after the select committee whether a supplementary order paper may be necessary. So that's the gestation of this bill. But let's get to the principle. The truth about this bill that every person who came before the select committee, including David Farrer, but he supported it, everyone agreed. This will do nothing to help victims. This will do nothing to stop recidivism. This will do nothing, and there is no evidence that it will stop reoffending. This will do nothing to change prisoner behaviour, and every submitter bar that one admitted that this was simply a political pamphlet. He woke up one morning, took the wet towel off his head, sat up, took the pills and thought, hang on, here's a good idea, this will get me on the front page of the Herald. Well, I say to that member, he may well be on the front page of the Herald tomorrow, but it will not be for the reasons and the motivation that he wanted. That member, sir, is incompetent. That member has done what no member in my living memory, either when I worked in here some 20 years ago or now as a Member of Parliament for the last nearly 12 years, I don't think I have seen such an incompetent display from a member with a private member's bill. Nor have I seen, sir, the total breach of every parliamentary protocol by a chair of a committee to shut down, truncate and stifle any debate. And that member, Sandra Gowdy, of course, wears this like a badge of honour, because had she acted appropriately and in a parliamentary sense and allowed debate and allowed the appropriate advisers to come in on it, and the reason she didn't do that, of course, was the advisers would have said quite rightly, this is piffle, and she now stands in the long line, sort of like Madame Tussauds Parliamentary Wax Museum, of Sandra Gowdy, Mr Quinn and that other great genius, Judith Collins, who was so embarrassed she immediately moved, didn't bother to tell Mr Quinn, to tell everybody there will be an SOP, we will correct this. And where's Simon Power, the invisible man? Where's Simon Power? No, I don't mean in the chamber. Where's Simon Power, the invisible man? This is a justice and electoral piece of legislation. Yet the Justice Minister, like 3 strikes, like a few other things, transparent, absolutely so transparent you can't see him. He's not here in terms of this piece of legislation. And we all know why, sir, because deep down, he is a learned lawyer, I am told. Sir, deep down, he knows this is no more than a political pamphlet. And I challenge those members who are on the committee to tell us a couple of things. Why did they block the justice officials from giving us advice? Because that might have saved Mr Quinn's scrawny hide and possibly his reputation. Why did they do that? Why did they vote against a resolution which said, wouldn't it be a good idea if we get a piece of legislation that we match that legislation up with the expert government department as advisers? Why would you vote against that, I say? Well, let Mr Calder and Mr Young, who is like a ghost on the committee, sits there like a statue, too meek and mild to actually open his mouth, but when Ms Gowdy nods, he puts his hand up and he votes the right way. They all go in like sheep. Aided and abetted, of course, by that former genius David Garrett. What great credibility this piece of legislation will have in the Hansard. Mr Garrett supported it. He was a lawyer. He thought it was brilliant. What great support this will have. So I say to Mr Quinn, if you're so smart and you think this is a wonderful piece of legislation, give us some explanations. Because that member stands condemned as being incompetent. His select committee members stand condemned with the same charge, as does the chair of the committee. No one on that, none of the submitters could give us any reason. And you have a look at this. There's no analysis in this. There's no analysis on the front end of this bill. There's no evidence. There's no justification. It's, hang on, I woke up one morning and thought, I'm going to get on the front of the New Zealand Herald. Well, by God, sir, he's done that. That'll happen tomorrow. That member will be in the Wally of the Week column, I think, for a long time. and he's wasted the time of this parliament, wasted taxpayers' money, Oh, there's a squawk box or a squeeze box going on over there. I say to that member, why doesn't the member tell us